And I read an article a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where that's how they've actually got the chickens in the coops now. They actually altered the brain, genetically altered the brain and the offspring, so they keep producing their kind now, and there's no bonding between the mother and chicks. You think you can't do that to humans too, through chemical means? It says amongst the workers it is probable that less elaborate care would be taken, since it's easier to breed for muscle than to breed for brains, and it's not unlikely that women would be allowed to bring up their own children in the old-fashioned natural manner. There would not be among the workers the same need as among the governors for fanatical devotion to the state, and there would not be therefore on the part of the government the same jealousy of private affections. That's bonding. Among the governors, one must suppose all private sentiments would be viewed with suspicion. That was put into 1990, Brave New World, I should say. A man and woman who showed any ardent devotion to each other would be regarded as they are at present, regarded by moralists when they are not married. There would be professional nurses in creches and professional teachers in nursery schools. We've got all that now. But they would be considered to be failing in their duty if they felt any special affection for the special children. Children who showed any special affection for a particular adult would be separated from that adult to make sure there's no bonding, you see. That's how you bring up a psychopath too, with psychopathic personalities. No bonding, no affection, so on. Ideas of this kind are already widespread. They would be found suggested, for example, in Dr. John B. Watson's book on education. The tendency of the scientific manipulator is to regard all private affections as unfortunate. Freudian was quite a character too. He took God from his elevated position and put it below his belt, you know. He had a fixation down there. Anyway, and taking drugs all the time. Anyway, have shown that they are the sources of complexes. By the way, that's why they bring a Freud or a Darwin forward in time. And again, make a star out of, and making stars out of scientists, of course, that was very important, who speak with authority, even though they're talking a lot of nonsense. But if it fits the job, it does the job at the time, that's all that matters. Administrators realize that they stand in the way of a wholehearted devotion to business. The church sanctions certain kinds of love while condemning others, but the modern ascetic is more thoroughgoing and condemns all kinds of love equally as mere folly and a waste of time. Now his pal, Julian Huxley, the head of UNESCO, the guy that was to give you the education for the world, for the children, said the same thing, that they'd encourage basically and separate the sexual aspect from any bonding. They separate completely, and they'd really work on that. Well, that's been done today. It's just they should say bang bang, thank you ma'am, and that's it. That's where you are today. And it's interesting too, since all these guys love Plato's Republic with a guardian class of rulers, when you think about it too, because Plato also went through these kinds of things where all women would be in common, and if you understand how you perceive things, when all women are free and easy, they are technically in common for the whole of the male society. What would we expect of the mental makeup of people in such a world? The manual workers may, I think, be fairly happy. One may assume that the rulers will be successful in making the manual workers foolish and frivolous. Work will not be too severe, and there will be endless amusements of a trivial sort. And that's what you've got on television and sports and all that stuff, and soaps and movies. Owing to sterilization, love affairs need not have awkward consequences so long as they're not between a man and a woman who are both of them unsterilized. In this way, a life of easygoing and frivolous pleasure may be provided for the manual workers, combined, of course, with a superstitious reverence for the governors instilled in childhood and prolonged by the propaganda to which adults will be exposed. That's how it's done. You see, you put an imprint in childhood. These are special people with the suits and ties who rule your country, etc. And you give them reverence from then on, because the media will just reinforce it for the rest of your life. These are the guys who bring you war and see weapons of mass destruction. Back with more after this break. Hi folks, we're back cutting through the matrix, reading some of the Scientific Outlook by Bertrand Russell to show you that it ties into with the article I read earlier about the Vatican and the Pope and the masculine suits and the culture industry and all the rest of it. And page 258 he says, in such a world, though there may be pleasure, there will be no joy. The result will be a type of displaying the usual characteristics of vigorous ascetics. They will be harsh and unbending, tending towards cruelty in their ideals and their readiness to consider that the infliction of pain is necessary for the public good. Do you understand what I just read there? It says, they will be harsh and unbending. This is the ruling, the ones they hire and so on, working on us now through this phase of it, tending towards cruelty in their ideals and their readiness to consider that the infliction of pain is necessary for the public good. We've had nothing but torture. They made movies about it too, where they torture someone and it saves the day, of course, for the information. I do not imagine that pain will be much inflicted as punishment for sin, since no sin will be recognized except insubordination and failure to carry out the purpose of the state. It is more probable that the sadistic impulses which the asceticism will generate will find their outlet in scientific experiment. Well, we're all getting experimented on now. We're just cattle, you see, and animals. We're no different than any other animal, so they can do what they want with you. And you already see it with fetal tissues. You see it with bodies hanging in wires, plasticized, it shows, etc. It says the advancement of knowledge will be held to justify much torture of individuals by surgeons, biochemists, and experimental psychologists. I've gone through some of the articles here where they were experimenting, even putting plutonium into blacks in America, claiming that they had cancers which they didn't have, so they could see what would happen to them. See, we're just experimental beings now. There's nothing holy about you or sacred about you or anything else, you see. As time goes on, the amount of added knowledge required to justify a given amount of pain will diminish, and the number of governors attracted to the kind of research necessitating cruel experiments will increase. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse, you see. Remember too, every government now has their unelected panel of scientists on board, like John Holdren, that wants to kill most of you off. And they're quite serious about it. And there's just a continuation of the same group that Russell belonged to. Just as the sun worship of the Aztecs demanded the painful death of thousands of human beings annually, so the new scientific religion, and it is a religion by the way, experts, it's religion, will demand its holocausts of sacred victims. And you're going to see them starve a lot of folk to death too. Gradually the world will grow more dark and more terrible. Strange perversions of instinct will first lurk in the dark corners and then gradually overwhelm the men in high places. Well, they're all into weird stuff, that's all I'll say. Sadistic pleasures will not suffer the moral condemnation that will be meted out to the softer joys, since, like the persecutions of the Inquisition, they will be found in harmony with the prevailing asceticism. So, that's only part of it, of course, and they even go into what will happen eventually in a breakdown of that system, but they also have the next part worked out to take over. So you see, you're living through a script, folks, and it's a script that one man didn't write, and lots worked on it, that they were already descended and descendants of a ruling class. We're always taught there's always bumbling fools in these classes, but they're not bumbling fools at all at the top. Because 1 out of every 10 of their offspring isn't so retarded or defective because of inbreeding. They actually have this incredible psychopathic ability to see us as nothing more than amoebas to be used. And that's what we're going through today. From Hamish Marcel from Ontario, Canada, it's good night to me, your God, or your gods go with you.